have made so many bad decisions that I'm now suffering through the consequences of. The sad part is that other people suffer because of my bad decisions. I understand. Nobody is going to feel sympathy for me. I had many positive opportunities presented to me. Zell was taking care of me. Zell was encouraging me. Zell was helping me. And I cheated on him. I lied to him. I betrayed him. I was abusive. I was malicious. I was cruel. I was haughty and reproachful and wanted to blame him for all my problems. I was a very unsympathetic character. And I know so many of my videos, I am showing you what, for years, Zell has seen. Zell has been coping with my emotional instability. He's been coping with my mental health problems, let's just say that. And I feel I have not done a good enough job in really describing, honestly, what I have done that is so horrible, traumatizing, and abusive. When I tried to talk about this with family members, with trusted family members, basically their response is, you can't accept all of the blame and responsibility for the relationship. It takes two to tango. But I have to say, this is my fault. This is my responsibility. I had responsibility to be a good partner to Zell. And I had a responsibility to his daughter as well. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. Zell has not seen his daughter since December 2018. That was the last trip to France. I went to France with Zell 4 times to visit his daughter. He was kind, he was generous in inviting me to come along with him from the start of our relationship when he really didn't know me, and I was 24 years old when I first met his daughter. In December 2018, Zell was 40 years old. I had already done a lot to damage him since I met him in February 2017. We'd been on the verge of breaking up repeatedly. We'd gone to baking school together. I was a nightmare during baking school. We dropped out of baking school, and I was responsible for getting my act together, for finding a new plan for what I would do moving ahead. I was also responsible for helping with this trip to France. We knew months in advance. We planned a week to adjust to the time zone before we actually spent time with his daughter. And I ruined it. I ruined the 4th trip to France. So what did I actually do? Well, one thing, I have not wanted to take responsibility for this, in part because it's just so embarrassing. So I was struggling with chronic diarrhea. I don't know the cause of it. I still don't know, and I'm still struggling with it. It started after baking school. And I was trying to take my health into my own hands. For years, I had been prescribed a medication from my dermatologist to control my acne. I had been taking the birth control pill for many years, and I'd been taking this pill called spironolactone to try to manage my acne. And I had clear skin, thanks to those medications. But when I thought, hey, these are medications that affect your hormones, I was doing research online, and it was very selfish of me. I understand health is important. I understand it's important to, have your own self-improvement process to be a better person. But I wasn't taking into account how this was damaging Zell and how this was making our relationship worse. My desire to quit the birth control pill and start this fertility awareness method of birth control to figure out what was going on with my hormones, and really there was nothing wrong. There was nothing wrong with my hormones. I just have acne. Just genetically unfortunate this way. I will always have acne. Yeah, I was trying to do a diet. I was already vegan, but there were these vegan twins that claimed that they cured their acne with this special diet with no oil. So I took that upon myself at that time, which was the worst time to do it. I quit the birth control pill, I quit the spironolactone pill, which was controlling my acne, and I started this diet, the clear skin diet. Terrible decision after terrible decision. Horrible consequences for Zell, horrible consequences for our relationship, horrible consequences for his relationship with his daughter. Because of how I conducted myself, because of my malice, because of my anger, because of my jealousy, because of my just inability to be a good partner. Zell was always loving toward me. Zell was always trying to make the relationship work. He loved me. He wanted to give me chance after chance to make things better. I made promises. I said I would be better. I said I would really, really try. I wrote things down, and I made commitments, and I broke those commitments. I broke those promises again and again and again. I had already a history of, in that relationship, damaging Zell, being abusive and cruel to Zell, especially about sexuality. From the start of our relationship, we had an open relationship. Zell was very firm. He knew his sexuality. He was a man in his late 30s when I met him. He knew, and he'd been in open relationships before, that he needed to have multiple sexual partners. This was a part of his life. Okay? There is absolutely nothing wrong with his sexuality. He is a normal, heterosexual man. I did everything I could to try to make him feel ashamed of his sexuality. I did everything I could, and it was one source of pride, one source of dignity in his life, that he was really good in bed. It seems people do not really want to hear this, but yes, we had an amazing sex life. It is unimaginable, just the number of times that we had sex, the frequency of the sex that we had, the quality of the sex. It's amazing. Okay, look, we don't drink alcohol, we don't do drugs, we don't gamble, we don't go to music festivals. We only have so many things that bring us joy. You know, Zell was always trying to encourage me to be more intellectual because that's a better way to cope with, you know, how to make your life meaningful than just sex, than life of the body things. The life of the mind is what he was always encouraging me to put emphasis on. But no. Yeah, there are physical factors. We were very sexually compatible. We had sex many times per day, and Zell was amazing in bed. Zell is amazing in bed. Amazing. And I lied, and I was cruel to him, and I said whatever I could to hurt him and make him feel less sexually confident. That was something that is just inherent to him as a person. Not only is he sexually confident, but he's also very well-spoken. He's a very charismatic person. You know, he's creative, he's brilliant. It's just overall, you know, there is a reason why people tuned in to see what Zell had to say. You know, for hours, people would listen to what he had to say because he's a brilliant person. He's a unique individual. He's creative, brilliant. I don't need to go on, okay? And I was so jealous because I can't do that. I can't just be the life of the party. I wasn't well-spoken. I was never well-spoken. I didn't have that ability, and I wasn't sexually confident. Although I had, in my first relationship, recorded videos of ourselves having sex, and I'd taken naked pictures of myself, that doesn't mean that I had the confidence to talk about sexuality, and I didn't talk about it with my ex-boyfriend. And, prior to meeting Zell, who is now my second ex-boyfriend. This is not something that I had built up over the years, whereas Zell, he was very sexually confident, and he was very able to discuss these issues. And I was an asshole about it. I was an asshole, and there were many people who wrote to him expressing interest in him. There were many women vying for his affection at the time that we got together. So it was always this built-up insecurity of mine that is not Zell's fault at all. There is no justification, no excuse for me denigrating his sexuality or making him feel bad about being a sexually confident person, okay? Bringing others down because you feel like shit is stupid and a bitch move, okay? So that's what I was doing again and again and again. And I did it on the 4th trip to France. And this time I really, really hurt him. It was so awful for him to cope with. It ruined our night's sleep. At least 3 nights. I ruined our night of sleep. Like, the week that we were trying to plan and prepare to be with his daughter. And that wasn't the only thing, but that is the source of sorrow and tension and pain, is that Zell put so much effort into our sexual relationship. He was also philosophically putting so much effort into discussing sexuality with me, into talking about these issues with me, into talking about the open relationship for so many hours, and I was just an asshole. I was just an abusive asshole again and again and again. So, once again, in France, on the 4th trip to France, we were preparing to see his daughter. For months, we'd known that we were going to celebrate the holiday that Zell had created. We're both atheists. Neither of us want to celebrate Christmas. Zell wrote storybooks. Zell was making the illustrations when we were in France, preparing to see his daughter. And I said this horribly, just false accusation about his sexuality, and it just ruined him. It just devastated him. And it really was my responsibility to make something better, to apologize again and again and tell him that I knew what I'd done wrong, that this was terrible. And I was just not somebody who knew how to take responsibility for what I'd done to harm somebody. And I also was not responsible for my own emotional instability. One thing that happened as well, which is very embarrassing and so childish, is that I had a complete meltdown. I was just a wreck because I forgot the Nintendo Wii motion sensor. It was my responsibility to bring that on the trip to play games on the Wii with Zell's daughter. And I didn't bring one crucial component. And instead of just being pragmatic and solving the problem and ordering a new one, which Zell ended up doing, I did not do that. I was just, out of control, out of hand, and you see from the previous uploads how out of control and how emotionally unstable I am. That's how I was about the Wii motion sensor. Just everything's horrible, doom and gloom. Okay, that is part of the pathology that I present regularly. Okay, and Zell did his best to cope with it. He was never abusive to me. He was never cruel back. He just was trying and trying and trying. And this really broke him. And that was the last time that he saw his daughter. On the last day that we saw his daughter, that we spent time with his daughter, we were on the train, and we stopped at a train station, and I was a cruel bitch to him about the stupidest thing. It was about coins for the toilet. As I said, I was struggling with diarrhea, and I was not used to... It doesn't matter. No excuse. There is no excuse to be a cruel bitch to your loving boyfriend who has generously brought you on a trip to France after having been on 3 prior trips to France in just the last year and a half with you. Just, such an ingrate, such a psycho. And he was really, really hurt. He was heartbroken. He just couldn't imagine the kind of malice and cruelty that I was displaying toward him. And that's the last thing that his daughter saw. Of course his daughter is going to go to her mother and talk about what happened. And since then, Zell's daughter's mother has not cooperated at all, and Zell has not been able to communicate with his daughter at all. And what have I done to make it better since then? That was December 2018. What did I do in 2019 to make it better? What did I do in 2020 to make it better? What did I do in 2021 to make it better? What did I do in 2022 to make it better? What did I do in 2023 to make it better? What did I do in 2024 so far to make it better? Nothing. What have I done to make it worse? So many things that we've already talked about on à-bas-le-ciel. I have made Zell's life worse and worse and worse and worse since then. I never made amends. I never took responsibility. I wanted to do anything I could to avoid taking responsibility for ruining Zell's opportunity to have a relationship with his daughter. It's my fault that Zell has not seen his daughter since 2018. So much was resting on me getting my act together. So much was resting on me finding an educational path, a career path, a home for us, a place for us to live. But a crucial element of this is Zell's relationship with his daughter. And I ruined it. I had chance after chance after chance to make it better. I could have gotten my act together. I could have gotten my degree by now. I could have a full-time job. I could have a career position by now. We could have a home together by now. Everything would be better now. If even after that I had done something to make it better. But I just made it worse and worse and worse. It's my fault. Zell has not been able to see his daughter since 2018.